All right, and here we are for round one. This is Bernie versus Bing, and I am very, very, very excited about this match. On the left, we have Robert Bernie. On the right, we have Hai Bing.
Yeah, and both very accomplished players. Bernie has top-aided a number of Grand Prix, actually won Grand Prix Phoenix a couple years back. And Hai Bing actually played for the United States at Worlds.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool. Way back in the Caw-Blade days of 2011. So they're both very accomplished players, and it'll be exciting to see how they are adapting their strategies to these brand new cards.
Absolutely. So for Bing on the right, we didn't get to observe his draft, but we did have the pleasure of walking through a very interesting set of picks with Robert Bernie on the left.
Yes, we did. Yeah, Bernie's draft was kind of interesting. We're in some sort of three-color... some people would call it masterpiece. Some people might call it a mess.
I think I'd have to fall on the masterpiece side of things here, REA.
Yeah.
It's an absolute beauty. She's a beaut, as they say down here in Texas. She's got...
Yeah, it's an interesting one.
A couple of meandering streams or woodland streams.
Yeah.
So I've done the math, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I know this is surprising.
Okay.
I spent some time doing the math.
I've seen you using your fingers and maybe an abacus or something.
There's some numbers over here.
Okay.
I don't know, these little candies, they won't come off of the abacus. I don't know what to do with them, but I think I might have figured out some math about the mana base here. We've got 5 islands, 8 swamps, and then 1 rupture spire.
Right.
2 of the streams, the woodland streams, and 1 foul orchard, which translates to 4 green sources, 10 black sources, and 8 blue sources. This is primarily a blue-black deck that is splashing for green. How's that for a switcheroo?
I think this is actually a very good mana base. Like 10 sources of a color is pretty much always your goal. You can't always achieve that goal, but that's the best, and especially given we know he has some heavy black mana requirements, that's fantastic. 4 green is pretty much spot on. As far as your splash color, when you're thinking about splashing a 3rd color, or sometimes maybe splashing a 4th color in draft, generally 4 sources.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like the 4th color possibility that you've left open.
I'll just
respectable.
Yes, I have done it. I have done it. Even in this format, I've already done it once, and it's an adventure. But 4 sources is kind of the gold standard for a splash color.
Right.
If you can get to 4, that's 1 in every 10 cards. So that means by turn 5 or 6, mathematically, you probably have your splash color.
You were talking about this when we were watching the draft as well, and it reminds me of like a time where I first started drafting. 17 lands in your deck, right? You have a 2-color deck. Maybe you go 10 and 7. Maybe you go 9 and 8. Maybe more likely.
Most of the time,
right? But if I'm going 9 and 8, I don't actually have 10 and 8. And this mana base happens to run only 17 lands.
Yep.
Yet it achieves more symbols of all 3 colors than my mana base ever did.
This mana base is actually, there are though some costs. We do have several tap lands, which is obviously a significant price to pay.
Absolutely.
But as far as having the correct number of sources, you're right. This kind of Bernie's like wonky 3-color mana base actually has more sources than your normal 17-color all basic list.
I'm pulling for it. I'm pulling for it.
You're pulling for it? Well, you have to cross your fingers and hope he plays the tap land on turn 1. That's
1 and 2. It'll remind you. It'll be just like standard nowadays. Tap land turn 1.
The tap lands on turn 1, it feels so good because you know that this land is just gonna mess you up on turn 4 when you're trying to cast your 4-drop. But man, when you have it on turn 1, it's a good feeling. Nope, just basics. Just basics. But
back to basics.
Yeah. So it looks like Hai Bing has drafted an interesting deck. It's he just showing Bernie some Baloths, Daggerback Baloth. But it looks like instead of that, he's going to go with this Turn 2 Druid of the Cowl. Kind of interesting because he also had an option to play Arresto Swiftclaw, which is a 3-1 for 2. He chose to play the Druid. What do you think about that?
Well, 3-1, definitely more aggressive. The 1-3, however, is more aggressive in terms of advancing the board state in a meaningful way. A 3-1 can, trade off for something. And I gotta say, a reanimating skeleton isn't the best thing to trade off for. I haven't even figured out how to trade off for it yet. It keeps coming back. I don't know where that guy comes from.
I played a game of Sealed yesterday in which I had 2 copies of that card and my opponent had 3. So frustrating.
You're kidding me.
No.
You're kidding me.
No, this was one of those games on Magic Online when you look in the corner and it says turn 27, and it's legitimately turn 27.
So, folks, if you're wondering how to beat 2 reanimating skeletons, it is 3 reanimating skeletons.
That was the outcome. Oh, here's that axe we talked about, and skeletons like holding axes.
Yeah.
Because that skeleton allows that skeleton to trade up for a bigger card and then also come back later.
Absolutely, and Hai Bing seems to be basically holding a couple of ores. I think I saw an Oaken form.
Yeah, he has that Oaken form in his deck, which is
Oaken
interesting.
form at least. Now right now he's sitting on 4 mana. An Oaken form costs 3. There's probably nothing of value you can do with 1 extra mana in his deck. So it looks like he's going just
to attack with Pegasus Courser, and that's it. You know, it's interesting because he's going to play Thorn Lieutenant here, or no? He's going to play what's going on? Oh, he's playing. Okay, he's going to play both Thorn Lieutenant and Arrestus Swiftclaw. Bernie rightly reads Thorn Lieutenant because it's extremely confusing. You want to give us a little rundown of everything that guy does?
I'm not aware of everything.
You don't know about everything?
No, I'm sorry.
So Thorn Lieutenant is a 2/3 for 2. That's an elf, which is kind of big for an elf.
A 2/3 for 2.
Yeah, it's a 2/3 for 2, and then for 6 mana, you can give it +4/+4. So it sort of does an impression of Crawlworm. Okay. And then if it's targeted by a spell or ability an opponent controls, you get a 1/1 elf token.
Hey, that's a handy little feature.
Yeah, so it's a sort of a convoluted card. I think they printed it to kind of maybe try to bump up elves a little bit, maybe in Modern or Legacy or something like that, because it's got some abilities that seem a little strange for Limited or Standard.
Sure.
But I think just to increase the card's overall power level, maybe for Eternal.
So perhaps the idea in Bing's strategy being to enchant it with a lot of threatening things so that an opponent is forced to try to target it. But
so then you get an elf, yeah.
To be honest, an elf for an Oaken form?
Yeah.
For an Oaken form, I don't know if I'm okay with that.
Yeah, it's not the greatest. Yeah, so then there's the Bailoff, which is a 2/2 Death Touch. This was there's an interesting decision that Bing made in this game that I think I may have done differently, although it is kind of scary. And when we look at Bernie's hand, we see he does have a Totally Lost. But I might have considered actually putting Oaken form on the Pegasus Courser earlier. Because our hand at the time was kind of slow and not great, and as you can see, we're sort of in a board stally situation at this moment.
Sure.
You know, I think I might have just gone for it and said, you know what, I'm just going to put Oaken form on my flyer. I'm going to have a 4/6 flyer. I'm going to hit you a couple times. You know, if you draw a removal spell, ouch, but if you don't, you're in a lot of trouble.
Sure.
I might have taken that line, but knowing Hai Bing, and I've been friends with the guy for years, he's going to be a lot more cautious than I would be.
And sometimes it could be the right move to play defensively. It seems like he's very much respecting the bounce and the kill potential that is iconic of the blue-black color pie.
Well, I think when you see your opponent playing this kind of deck that Bernie's playing, 3 colors with numerous black mana, there's a really good chance that they've probably drafted some amount of removal spells because, you know, you wouldn't want to be in a 3-color strategy that is a little bit slow and a little awkward if you were at the mercy of your opponent's creatures without removing
Exactly, and in fact, as we saw when we watched Bernie's draft, what pulled him into 3 colors was the removal.
Yeah.
He saw Rabid Bite. Yep. He saw Totally Lost. He saw another Totally Lost. He very much followed that splash to these high impact spells. Now, when you're not hitting your 5th land and the board is slowly growing,
it's time to anticipate.
You start to worry.
Yep, you have to anticipate for a land, which is always such a bad feeling.
It is.
Why do I have to anticipate just to get this, this island I probably should have drawn? But, this happens sometimes. So Rabid Bite, it looks like it's taking out the stag here. Starcrown Stag? I mean, that guy is very, very good. Have you had a chance to play with or against Starcrown Stag so far?
I've had a chance to play against it, and the only time I've beaten it is by removing it on turn 4 on the play with an Electrify.
Yeah.
The only time I've beaten it was that I was a faster red-white deck, I curved out, and I got to kill it immediately. But good lord, I'd hate to be in a situation like this with a Stag, and especially Stag next to Pegasus.
Yeah,
Stag next to Pegasus?
Yeah. I don't know if a stag and a pegasus, I guess they're both like horses, so they're friends.
Sure, of course. And of course.
But, here comes the Oaken form. So here's kind of what went down here. Bernie fell behind because he had to anticipate for just a land. He was able to Rabid Bite away the stag to prevent that sort of nightmare situation we were talking about where a stag just like taps your creatures all the time and you can never attack or block.
He's definitely in damage control mode.
But Bing decided to go for that Oaken form play we discussed earlier and say, you know what, hey, yes, you may have removal, yes, I might get 2 for 1, but the coast is clear, you're tapped out, I'm going to get in for at least 1 hit with this Oaken form Pegasus.
Just maximizing his value. So here we're passing back to Bernie's. He's weighing his options. Looks like he's spending a Totally Lost to get rid of the enchantment by returning the Pegasus Courser to the top. This is a card I like a lot. I like knowing what my opponent's going to draw next.
Yeah, Totally Lost. To me, I kind of view it in a similar way to I view Sure Strike is a kind of similar card for me also. There's certain cards where I don't play them in my deck very often, but I lose to them constantly, and both of those cards fulfill that premise quite well. Let me be clear. I think they're both good cards, and they have their role. It's just those are cards that I often will cut as sort of like my 23rd card.
Sure.
You know, I'm looking at like a totally lost versus sort of a creature as that last slot, and a lot of the time the kind of curve creature will take the slot.
Sure, and it sort of demonstrates the innate weakness of the auras.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though Totally Lost is definitely not comparable to some of the other removal spells that are in the set, it still does a great job of turning that Oaken form into an overpriced sorcery speed pump spell.
Yes,
and those aren't good cards to play in your deck. You know?
No, they're not. Absolutely not. And you know, I've also had the immense pleasure of having my Vivian Reed Totally Lost in response to Vivian Reed's +1 ability, which means that Vivian Reed goes on top of my deck, and then I activate the ability, and then I put Vivian Reed on the bottom of my deck. No. And I have had that happen to me. No. I have a little...
She just gets up and walks out.
Yeah, it was not a good feeling. I definitely thought about not even activating it in case it would happen, but in the end, I went for it. I mean, I did end up actually winning the game because I had a Planeswalker I activated once, but man, it didn't feel good.
Yeah, sometimes the arrow doesn't fly true.
So it looks like Oaken form is back. This time, who is it on? Is it on the Corsair again?
Looks
Man,
like
Bing has like a bunch of Oaken forms in his deck. What do you think about that?
Well, if he keeps presenting them, it's going to tax the amount of removal that Bernie has access to. And right now, I think Bernie has a Death Touch.
Yeah, he's got a
Reach creature.
Yes. God, I can't think of the name of this guy. I know he's an elf because I pumped him with an elf lord already, but I don't recall that guy's name. Can we look that guy up so we know who that guy is?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we'll get back to you on that.
We'll get someone
one.
on it.
But that guy is a very, very strong card. He's a 2/3 Death Touch that is sort of half of a Blood Artist. You don't gain life, but your opponent does lose life when creatures die. So it's the card has a lot of really good utility. First of all, obviously it has Reach, which is huge. It has Death Touch, which is annoying to any attacker, even big ones. But that drain ability, especially on sort of a board stall, that drain ability becomes relevant.
Can it be a win con? Can it be a win con in some situations?
I had a deck with 2 of them, and I definitely won a lot of games.
And this is not a legendary creature at all.
No. Okay. It's just an uncommon, actually. It's a pretty powerful gold uncommon in the set.
So it looks like Bernie's finally starting to turn the corner. He's finally turning some creatures sideways.
Yeah, I mean, Bing was in the unfortunate position of having to spend all of his mana to grow his elf, which in theory sounds like a good thing, but the problem is it'll let Bernie know that the coast was clear in terms of attacks, because Bing really couldn't represent an instant, and he knew that Bing didn't add to his board that turn at all. So he was able to attack with both a Hired Blade as well as the Skeleton.
The Hired Blade being the 3/2 flash for 2 in a black.
Yeah, that guy is awesome. I love
Really? Surprised that he made it see, because he reminds me of Pouncing Cheetah. And that was never a card I was too excited to play.
No.
That was a very different draft
format.
Yes,
Pouncing Cheetah was not good, but Pouncing Cheetah was also not a black card. The fact that it's a black card is huge because green always has good curve creatures at pretty much every point of the curve. That's sort of like their goal, I guess, as a color.
Of course.
But black doesn't often have sort of like tricky flash creatures, you know? It's a really unique card.
Sort of a minor color shift in a way.
A little bit,
Something you don't see coming.
We usually see that ability generally in blue, and like you said, occasionally in green. But yeah, in black, it's not often that we have seen this sort of ability. So I'm a pretty big fan of the card. I've played it mostly in decks with a lot of instant speed removal. So like I've played it in decks that have Murder, as well as like other ways to interact with people as instants, Electrify.
Right.
And it's really good in those decks because you can pass a turn. If they play a strong creature, you can use your removal spell. And if they don't play anything, or
you can add to the board.
Yep,
it's like a counter spell or a draw a card.
Right. It's
with the creature.
It's like a really bad Snapcaster Mage, but you know, it's for limited. I mean, I think the card is a strong role player in a lot of strategies.
So Bernie's just picked up a Skeleton Archer.
Yep.
It doesn't look like there's, at first glance, a useful way to make use of this card, other than perhaps baiting some sort of block with
I guess
skeleton.
Yeah, I guess he could try to send in the Skeleton, and if Bing goes, yeah, I'll block the Skeleton, he can kind of get
He has
him.
been representing attacks with the Skeleton regularly,
Yep.
so it's something he could bluff. It seems like right now he's content to just push in with the 3/2 on the
Yeah,
ground.
I think I think he feels like Bing is not going to fall for that. He's not going to let that happen. And I do think that that's something that when you play against stronger competition, really good players, trying to sort of get him with weird tricks works less often. Okay,
so
looks
just a
like
straightforward attack. It looks like that Izalith?
Here's that skeleton archer, and it's just going to deal, I think, just 1 to high Bing here. It's got nothing else exciting to target. And then, interestingly, Bernie, leaving open 2 mana, did not re-equip his higher blade. Or sorry, his with the axe, yeah.
So this can only represent in Bernie's deck. I don't anticipate.
Yeah, I don't
she's
even.
already cast.
I don't even know if he has a card that he could even play here. I think he just kind of wants to a little bit put the fear into Bing, so that Bing doesn't know that the coast is 100% clear. He wants to at least make him think about it.
He's puffing his chest, making sure he knows that there is 1 card in
hand.
And
since
we know it's a swamp, but Bing doesn't.
Exactly. Yeah. Since he has only 1 card in hand and plenty of mana to equip the axe next turn, it's actually a very smart play by Bernie to leave open just that 2 mana, just to at least make Bing think about it if he's trying to do anything too crazy. Now, normally in most games, that kind of a bluff wouldn't be worth it because you'd be costing yourself the ability to do something. But with so many lands in play and a land in hand, he should be able to equip the blade and cast a spell at the same time.
Indeed.
So here comes more Baloths, because apparently Bing just likes to gum up the ground here. And here we're going to see the hired blade equipped with a blade.
What do you know about that?
Yeah.
Seems like he's made an upgrade.
It is a blade holding a knife.
Swinging in as a 5/2.
Yeah, he's battling here. I think from Bing's perspective, with the life totals of 15 to 4, you just take it and you go. It takes you down a little bit. I think he would be at 10 here, and Bernie holding on at 4 with 2 skeletons back to try to stem the tide of these attackers. Wow, Bing really has a lot of enchantments in his deck, huh?
He does. It looks like he's looking to overwhelm any deck that's playing removal, bouncer interaction, just with an absolutely enormous amount of creatures.
Yeah, and here we see Talons of Wildwood.
Now this is the aura that I can get behind.
Yeah, this one I like. I like it a little bit more than the Oaken form because you can return it. It is very mana intensive to continually return from your graveyard, but I view it almost more like an equipment than an enchantment because it's sort of a reusable effect that we can move around.
Absolutely, it's 1/1, it's trample, and it's in that way a mana sink as well in the late game. It gives new angles on combat. Now,
this is sort of, remember we talked when we were looking at the drafting process about how you can get into these awkward board stalls where nobody can attack? Welcome to Core Set Limited.
Welcome to Core Set Limited.
Where both players have creatures of similar size, but it's just not profitable to attack on either side.
If you look to your left, you'll see a skeleton holding an axe. If you look to your right, you'll see a fungal Baloth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's got the elf, which could become very large at some point.
Sure.
The problem is that in order for it to become big, Bing has to tap out, which really leaves wide open for many things. Ooh.
With no cards in hand.
Yeah.
But he does have to respend on Talons of Wildwood as long as he has a creature out, or at least most of the time he's incentivized to do so.
Well, it looks like Bernie is playing Skeleton Tribal.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he does not have the Skeleton Lord in his deck, but he has played 3 skeletons in a row. So it looks like he's got now a 5/3 and a 1/1, and Bing is falling very far behind.
There aren't many effects in this color pie outside of something like a Block a Worm that can help you stabilize on a board state like this. And Bernie has so many options, so many flyers, so many aggressive cards. He has the graveyard marshal ready to come down and make creatures. He has the 2/3 flyer. He has 2 of the discard draw card 3/3 flyer.
Psychic Symbiote. Psychic Symbiote. Symbiote. Somebody in the comments will give us that one. I don't know, but it's kind of interesting because I think both decks are relatively similar in power level, but in some ways, Bing's deck that's playing a lot of creature enchantments, auras. We're kind of seeing a little bit in this game why auras sometimes aren't the best strategy.
Absolutely.
Now, Bing is a good player, so I'm not criticizing his deck by any means. I'm sure he's got, for example, here he's got a creature that gave him a token for playing an aura, and I'm sure he has other aura synergies as well. Like, the gold, white, green card in the set is it's an enchanter.
Yes.
It's not. You were used to the Enchantress, which would be the female pronoun. This guy is a male, so he's
a Satyr Enchanter.
Satyr Enchanter.
And when you play an enchantment for 1 green and white for a 2/2.
Yep, and
draw a card.
Yeah, and by the way, this Talons, you can reuse that too, so you can draw multiple cards off of 1 enchantment there. So I'm sure that Bing has his reasons. Like I think he probably built the deck well, but at the same time, when you play like multiple Oaken forms against a deck with swamps in it,
it's a little bit of a tell.
Yeah,
it's a little bit of a tell that you have some sort of build around in it.
Yeah,
and it just so happens that he's gotten to his build around after Bernie has lost his removal.
It's taken a while, but like when your opponent's trying to interact with you and you're trying to Oaken form, unless you have Vinemare, which is a different horse of a different. You make the horse jokes about Vinemare. Unless you have like the hexproof guy, you are putting yourself at some amount of disadvantage.
So let me ask you this: at this point in the game, at this sort of grindy stage, does Bernie perhaps want a certain Dryad that you might have seen in foil?
Oh wait.
Could this be a spot we see a 3/1 attack from the skeleton along with a 2/3 and a 3/3?
Yeah, and that's gonna do it because you know what? He had a 3/3, a 3/1, and a 2/3. Doesn't sound very imposing.
No.
But Bing only had 2 creatures and he was at 2, so that was good enough.
There you go.
All right, well, we're going to move on to the next game here. One thing I think will be interesting, do you think Hai Bing will side out any of his creature enchantments now that he's seen removal spells and totally lost?
It depends. I'm not sure he can. He sort of forces the removal onto specific creatures by targeting them with the enchantments over and over and over again. I'm not sure of what we haven't seen in his deck either. That many Oaken forms suggests to me we saw the beast that creates, and that's a great payoff. Exactly. It really is. If you can stabilize with that card, it's great on the ground. There are plenty of flyers in this format. There are red flyers in this format. There are flyers in every color. And so stabilizing on the ground needs to come with some sort of life gain package. Needs to come with some sort of quick damage that you can get through fast. Maybe it needs to be a Naya build that gives things haste and +1/+1.
Yeah, or you can just play Giant Spider and your opponent can never attack again.
Giant Spider. We hardly knew you, Giant Spider.
I will say this, I have been playing Magic for really that long. Giant Spider was an alpha, so Giant Spider has been around. He's
always been doing the same thing, and they never learn. They never learn. And you fly into the forest, you get too close to the canopy.
And he's still very big. He's still giant, and he's
been getting bigger every
year. I have to say, Giant Spider has been in the game for a long time, and I honestly dislike the card.
You dislike the card?
I dislike the card because it leads to less interesting games of Limited.
Less interesting games by giving green a way to shut down a flyer.
Yeah, the problem is that it outclasses most 2-mana creatures and any flyer that has 2 toughness, and it basically turns those all into blank cards, and it just kind of extends the game what it feels like indefinitely.
I will say this, it's not uncommon to find 4-mana creatures that are 2/4s at common. It is uncommon to find them with reach. It's uncommon to find them with a keyword, especially a keyword that's so good at blocking.
Well, I think that one of the things Wizards are trying to do lately with Dominaria, now with M19, they're trying to kind of bring back some of the old flavor of 90s Magic, but they don't want to bring back cards like Necropotence or anything like that.
They brought back Icy Manipulator.
Yeah, they did. Oh man, that was so.
They gave that one to it.
That was so cool. I loved playing with Icy Manipulator again. I felt like I was 12 again. But I think they're trying to bring some of that back. So I respect and appreciate Giant Spider. I just find that I think the card is not balanced well for limited environments. It just makes blocking more interesting than attacking, and I prefer formats where there's a little bit more give and take with combat.
Sure.
I think sometimes with cards that have high toughness, especially like a 2/3, 2/4s, 2/5s, when there's a lot of commons like that in a limited format, you end up with a lot of board stalls and people passing back.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, it looks like nobody started with a 2-drop this game.
There we go. Now, this is a grindy. This
is where we start grinding each other out. Oh, speaking of grindy cards, Omen Speaker. What's your view on Omen Speaker?
My view on Omen Speaker is it's threefold. Number one, I think that 1/3s are pretty decent in this format. I think they're maybe even a little bit better than they were in Dominaria. I think that
Child of Night is a card in this format.
Yeah,
right?
Child of Night, the Marshal that pumps 2/0 when it enters. After it does its thing, it's a 2/1. We've got Instigator, 2/1. Yep. We've got all sorts of 1-buck creatures, 1 toughness creatures, and so I think a 1/3 is often going to survive. Now the other key piece, right, is that when we look at fast, cheap, instant speed removal in this set, we have Shock.
Yep.
We have
Electrify?
Electrify is a 4 CMC.
Oh, sure.
So I'm going to put that at the higher end of the curve. Yeah, I'm talking 1 through 3. We've got Lightning Strike at Uncommon. We've got Disperse, Essence Scatter, I suppose, Murder.
Yeah.
3. Not a lot.
Also uncommon, yeah. Yeah, most of the common removal spells in this set are a little more expensive. Like
now, the other thing I like about Omen Speaker, right, is that in a 3-color deck, I'm going to get back on my 3-color soapbox. It's you know what colors it is? It's black, blue, and green.
Yeah.
And
Omen Speaker is fantastic for fixing your mana for sure.
Absolutely.
So it looks like Bernie's got all of his colors, he's got everything on time, and here comes Snapping Drake, another throwback card, and still a good one, you know? I mean, it's not the 3-2 for 4, not the greatest.
No
but
boy,
hey.
I don't like how that Drake is looking at that Pegasus Courser.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is awkward for High Bing. It looks like he's going to be missing his land drop, but he's going to attack with his Death Touch creature and Pegasus Courser anyway.
Representing a trick, he has it.
So exactly. So he had attack with the Courser. Bernie had blocked Pegasus Courser with Snapping Drake as a 3-2. He knew, you know what, there's a good chance High Bing is not just throwing away his 1-3. He's probably got something here. But he said, hey, you know what, I'm going to make the block, and I'm just going to keep going.
And you know, this is an angle that that Bing's deck has to take. You know, when so much of your win con is power and toughness based, you've got to put in some tricks, and you've got to turn those tricks into removal spells. And you got to just send those creatures in and get the value when you can. It looks like
it also allowed Bing to do something really important, which is he basically couldn't play a card that turn. Right. He got stuck on lands and had no available play. So being able to use the Titanic Growth on that turn when he would have otherwise just passed the turn and lost mana is actually a kind of a win for him, even though he's having trouble with mana.
Yeah.
That's one thing that I think a lot of people don't always appreciate, because of course using your mana effectively, like playing 2 spells in a turn when possible, or if you have a choice between playing a 4 or 5 mana card and you have exactly 5 lands, playing like the 5 mana card to use that extra mana. But there's actually something to be said for leaving the fewest lands untapped at any one moment. That way you are sort of losing less mana.
I see.
To do that. Believe it or not, it actually becomes a factor in quite a few games. So here comes the Courser again. This time there's a Sky March, a Bloodletter, which is just going to block the Courser. But hey, you know what? We got in for 2 with that Daggerback Baloth. So.
Yeah, and the combo Pegasus Courser plus a flying 2/2 Death Toucher is proving to be pretty potent against Bernie's current board state. He's got a Bloodletter, which won't kill the Pegasus, but will hold off 1 damage.
Right.
He doesn't want to trade his 2/2 for the 2/2 Death Touch, but at this point in the game, he's sacrificing so much potential tempo because Bing is still stuck on 3 lands. If he could be removing these creatures, I think he'd be a lot happier. Now this is a tempo swing right here.
This is Psychic Symbiote. Bing is going to read it. He's going to look at it. He's going to realize that it's really good. He's going to read it again.
He might admire how pretty the art is. And
he's going to sigh. He's going to throw a card in his graveyard, and he's going to move on. Because Colossal Dreadmaw, honestly not doing much this game, but still it's so unfortunate. I mean, God, this card's a 3/3, and then it's also like +2 in card advantage, 1 less for your opponent and 1 more for you.
Exactly, and there goes the plan of attacking with the Pegasus Courser and the Death Toucher every turn. Now you've got if he wants to bluff it, he can. He's not attacking. This means he probably doesn't have a Titanic Growth. Probably doesn't have it.
Oh, Giant Spider. Like I said,
Who needs a Titanic Growth?
My favorite card, bound to extend this game by at least 3 turns. Because look at what happens now.
Oh my goodness.
He's got Bernie is the other Symbiote, which means that he again gets to draw a card. Bing again has to discard.
This also means he can now freely attack in because he doesn't care if one of them gets blocked and then the damage gets negated. He can still get through for the other or trade for a Courser.
It could
not trade. But
it could. It's a little bit problematic though, because Bing will have available to him a double block with Giant Spider and Pegasus Courser, which doesn't sound that great. But the options for Bernie are actually slightly awkward, because the options are either he trades a 3/3 for a 1/3, or in worst case scenario, which we actually see in Bing's hand, Bing has some kind of combat trick, and then he trades a 3/3 for Titanic Growth.
Yes.
Because with attacks like this, it's like Bernie's going to make the attack. There's no way you're leaving him back. I mean, you have to at least put pressure and see what happens. But like the way this is going to pan out for him is not going to be great. He's going to end up trading a 6 mana card for a Titanic Growth. Granted, he did draw a card off of it.
Sure.
So it's not
He's gotten value already.
Okay. Bing's not even going to run that. He's just going to block with Giant Spider and then Titanic Growth. Interesting.
He's happy to trade that Titanic Growth.
Yeah, I think he could have done the double block and then do it, because then if Bernie had an instant speed removal spell,
Be a
he
more
might
protected
have.
block.
Well, it kind of would sort of incentivize Bernie to try and use his trick or his removal spell first, and then Bing could follow up with his Titanic Growth, basically allowing
Get not just a creature, but also another card out of his hand.
getting a card out of his hand, kind of for free.
And it looks like someone just took vengeance upon the other symbiote, and that's pretty fair. A psychic symbiote doesn't sound like a very friendly fellow indeed.
Nope. And now we have to look at this really sad cavalry, because this cavalry has to, I had to guess, attack into a skeleton or something.
We're back where we started, the 2/2 flyer, and then a 1/3 flyer and a 2/1. Now,
yeah, that's right. The courser was just making that cavalry fly over.
Indeed.
So we're again in sort of an interesting position. Giant Spider holding down the fort like it does, like it's been doing since '93.
I just noticed that Bernie did pick up the Skyrider Patrol.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's going to be an annoying card for High Bing.
It's exactly the card you want in a board assault, especially when you have flyers that you can pump.
Interestingly, he chose this turn to. What did he deploy there? He deployed something else. Oh, it was another skeleton archer. So he dealt 1 damage to Bing's 1 toughness creature, killed it, and now he plays the 2/3 to follow up. So it's actually interesting. He didn't use the patrol's ability on that turn, but he definitely got a lot of mileage out of the turn.
Absolutely. It's like you were saying, he left as little mana untapped as possible, and that in limited, that poses a pretty huge threat the next turn. Next turn, he's going to be able to untap with a full 8 mana. 2 of it's going to be spent making 1 flyer bigger.
Yep.
At the very least, if nothing else changes, if he draws a land card, that's going to happen. Well,
he drew a land, but I think what ends up happening here is he is able to put a counter onto the 3/3 skeleton, which would then make it a 4/4 and make Giant Spider not really able to block it. Giant Spider would end up blocking the 2/3, but I think we're okay with that.
Yeah, with High being tapped out, there isn't much. There isn't much that he can do.
Interesting. So he attacked with that one. Did he attack also with the flyer? No, right?
Does not look like it. The only thing that is swinging in is the now 4/4 skeleton archer.
Interesting. I guess his fear there was that Bing would double block it with the Pegasus Courser and the Giant Spider. So it's a 2/3. So he did not want that to happen. Which I guess makes sense, but the downside to this one is that Bing has the Death Touch creature he could have blocked with. He chose not to. So I guess Bernie's just content. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to build up. Maybe he'll even end up putting a counter on a different creature every turn,
right?
And just sort of grow the board that way.
He has so many options available to him. One is to just overpower the board. That becomes pretty tough to do on the ground. Mm-hmm. I think the thing that makes the most sense to me is either to focus on the Bloodletter, or to.
I kind of like making Skeleton Archer like larger and larger is one option, because eventually it's going to force a block from the Baloth, which is then going to open up some different attacks. The other option here is that he can kind of, like we said before, he can kind of move the counters to a different creature each time, and that way, if it eventually does get answered, his whole board is larger. It looks like he's going with that initial plan, though, of just sort of making the archer
piling
bigger.
on one creature, sending it in, forcing the block with the Death Toucher.
Yeah.
The thing is slowly just trading off resources.
Yeah.
He's very attached to that Death Touch Baloth at this point.
Oh, you know what? I just realized, because the way these cards work can be confusing at times, especially a card like Skyrider Patrol. It gives the other creature flying even if it doesn't attack itself. So I didn't. Yeah,
it flies over in the air.
Yeah, so that Skeleton Archer has been flying over those Baloths. Typically cards like this, I think both of us on our mind we had Pegasus Courser because it's on the board.
We did. We had in mind a pretty fair but also pretty good ability. We hadn't considered the
Right. We were thinking. We were thinking about Pegasus Courser. Oh, you have to attack to make the other creature fly. No, you don't.
It's not every day. It's not every day that you're offered help from an elf on a flying manta ray.
No. That card is, every time I read it does something else. Yeah. So here come all the flyers now. Big at 7.
This is almost a Hadana's Climb on a stick.
Yeah, it is.
At this point.
It kind of is. And it looks like pretty much this game is over, I guess. I mean, what can make you even draw here? Definitely Plains was not going to do it.
No.
Yep.
Well, let me tell you, this is something I'm looking forward to doing in the near future in the Core 19 draft format. Is assembling a deck with multiple multiple Skyrider patrols. I think that's going to be a goal of mine pretty soon here. I'm going to see just how big and just how in the air we can get things.
Sounds good to me.